You can admonish someone or correct somebody's heart with your words and not sin personally yourself. So where are you going with this? Well, when God says that we're supposed to admonish our children, if we're supposed to treat heretics the right way and not get in the flesh for them, certainly, daddies, your words of correction to your children should not be full of sin. Should not be full of the attitude of your own sin. Somehow, daddies have gotten the idea that the louder the volume, the more change it's going to make in my child's life. That is wrong. It's sin. So fathers must rebuke and warn and correct their children. If there's a right way, a wholesome way to admonish a heretic, there's certainly a wholesome way to admonish your own child. You should rebuke them and warn them and correct children with words that are wholesome and under control and without extreme volume and not yelling. You can't admonish the heart of your child if you are sinning against God in anger. Let me just explain that to you in a very real way. Johnny, you better stop doing that, you blankety blank kid. I can't believe you blankety blank did that. Won't you start serving God? You better get your heart right. Blankety blank. You laugh at me, but listen, there are daddies in here right now that you know that you lose your temper and you lose your language when you're trying to admonish your child, and your heart and your motive is right. You want them to do the things of the Lord, but you're sinning in doing it. You can't sin your child into doing the right thing with your words. Do we get that? Is that just not the most foolish thing in the world? We want our child to do the right thing, so we cuss at them. Oh, I would never do that. I have never raised my voice one time to my child. I am perfect. I teach Sunday school. I'm a deacon. Get real. Leave your hypocrisy at the door. We're all real people here. And our flesh struggles and my flesh struggles every day. You say you cuss at your kids. I don't cuss at my kids, okay? All right? Have I ever raised my voice? But you better believe it. Have I ever had to apologize to my kids? You better believe it. You better believe it. Our admonition, our words, these are words that correct, must be wholesome words. It is never justified to swear at your child. It is sin. It is sin to scream at your child, to yell at your child. God never corrects that way. Think about our Father, who is patient with us. He chastens with a restorative and a loving hand. Think about that. His words and his warnings are fearful at times. He says to his own children, it is a fearful thing to fall in the hands of an angry God. Okay, that is a thing that he warns us about. But understand that he never chastens us in his wrath, and his anger was handed to Jesus Christ on the cross. Understand that whole passage, it was an Old Testament passage that was being quoted. His anger is fulfilled in the Lord Jesus Christ. In fact, David in Psalm 6, he begs God never to correct him in God's hot displeasure. He begs God not to do it. Could you imagine if God would chasten us, his children, in his anger? I'm going to pick on saying, hey, where's Dr. Bish tonight? Oh, he got burned up. Well, what do you mean? Oh, he was doing wrong and God just fried him. That's what would happen. Daddies, learn from God. Learn the patience. Learn that you can lovingly correct with words and lovingly even spank your child. Lovingly, in full control. Oh, for some daddies who would learn from God the Father. Dads, your words, your word corrections should never bear threats that you don't mean to enforce. We must not tell our children, you stop that or I'm going to spank you. If you don't mean to do it the very next time, then don't lie to your child. Don't lie. You say, what do you mean? Your child is being trained that you don't mean what you say. You really don't mean it. It's a smoke screen. That threatening is not how God chastens. It's not the wonderful promises of the chastening of the Lord. That threatening provokes your children to wrath. He doesn't believe you. He thinks that you're just threatening. You're yelling around idle thoughts. And listen, Corporal punishment is something that is very serious and must be done the very right way, in a godly way. And you don't throw it around like threats. If you don't intend to spank them, don't threaten that. Just say, please stop that, Daniel. That's my son. Or whatever the name of your child. Don't say it about Daniel to your son if his name's not Daniel. That would be silly. Okay, but you understand what I'm saying, okay? Take your authority and tell them to stop. If you intend to spank, only use that. Don't throw it around as a word that's thrown around. A daddy's words are powerful. I want to ask something. I got a little place here in my note. How many of you remember growing up as a child, something your daddy said, whether good or bad, that leaves a lasting impression on you? You remember a situation, you remember something that your dad said that you just can't forget. I mean, it's a lasting impression. Okay, listen. Daddy's words are powerful. Daddy's words must be careful. Daddy's words aren't to be thrown around with emotion. Daddy's words are careful. Dads, this verse tells us this word admonition, to correct by our words, correct words, and especially the Lord's words. We'll talk about that for a moment. Daddies, your words are very important, how the methods that you use in your words to rear your children. Admonition can be positive or negative, even as the Lord's admonitions in His words are positive and negative. The things that He tells us in here are positive and negative. So what are you talking about? Well, positively, they're full of promises. Some of the things He tells us are full of promises for our obedience. Some of them are great praise to us and about us and our future and reward to us. But then God also admonishes His children with rebuke and teaching and blame even sometimes. You did this. Take responsibility for it. In introspection, search me, O God, for instance. In command, in God's admonition, the Father's admonition to us, there is a negative and a positive side. And so to your children, fathers, there should be negative and positive admonition. I guess this is where the tomato plant illustration breaks down. Because you don't go out to your tomato plant and you say, boy, you're doing a good job. No, you go out to your tomato plant and you tie it down again. But not to children, because they're not tomato plants. There's both a negative rebuke side and a very positive, promising, and praise side. Fathers, don't forget the positive words. Listen to this Proverbs in Proverbs 15:23. A man hath joy, or gets back joy is what it means. A man hath joy by the answer of his mouth. He gets back joy by the answer of his mouth. And a word spoken in due season, how good is it? Many times, dads, you could accomplish much more by your positive praise words than you could by yelling, correcting, yelling. I find as a daddy, I am very quick to give negative correction. It comes out of me naturally. But I'm slow to give a positive word in due season that will encourage my child. Fathers, I know you want your children to do right and to act right and to be right, but we must understand that our encouraging words bend the heart also. That's part of admonition. Within the word, it's negative and positive. Sometimes a string of negative correction will simply discourage your child. You will beat them down. Have you ever seen a puppy? We had a puppy named Patches when we first got married. I don't want to go into it. But one thing, this puppy, it seemed like that. Have you ever seen a puppy that had been whipped a lot? That draws away from your hand and won't? That is sometimes how children get to be. When the only thing that they hear out of the mouth of their dad is negative words of correction. Don't do that. Don't do this. You shouldn't have done that. I can't believe you blew that. And you talk to the dad and he says, I'm just trying to bring my child up in the admonition of the Lord. Trying to get him to do what God says do. Our loving Father knows how to use positive and reinforcing and rewarding words to us, daddies. You got to understand that part of your admonition has got to be your son and your daughter have got to know when they've done the right thing. They need to know that they're pleasing the Lord. They need to know that that's the goal. They need to know that you are fallible too. They need to know that we all blow it sometimes. They need to know that our goal is to do right. They need to know, and it's part of bringing up a child, that they would understand that there is sin in their heart. And the only way that can go away is if they're born again, if they're saved. All right? As the law could not make any adult righteous, so they must understand that there is sin in their heart.